Welcome into the TexAgs Rewind presented by Specs, the 4-time Retailer of the Year. I'm Luke Evangelist, and we are outside of the Rollo Insurance Studio and inside the fishbowl, as we like to call it back here. Sorry for no David Nuno or Billy Liucci. They're currently working on their basketball post-up moves because they are about to play each other in a very heated contest, which we may or may not televise on Friday. Let's go around the room and just hear, well, no one else has a mic, so if you could just shout out what your favorite part of the show was and I'll mimic it. Andrew Monaco. Boomer White. Callie Garner's the only one paying attention. Anyone else? Anyone else your favorite part? Billy Liucci. You can find all of them, plus Brandon Marcello on this edition of the TexAgs Rewind. Check it out.
Brandon and Destin, a lot of talk from Greg Sankey about the playoff moving forward, and should the SEC, they obviously want 4 teams in, automatic bids, because in their mind they're playing such a more challenging conference schedule that they want to get 4 teams in or don't want to move forward until they find out what's the strength of schedule component going to be in all this, deciding the field. What's your thoughts on that? Is the SEC grandstanding a little bit, or do they have a legitimate case?
I think that in a lot of ways, Greg Sankey is a victim of being a little bit too diplomatic, even within his own conference with his athletic directors. He's acting like a state representative. He's sitting there going, "What do you guys want? What do you ADs want? Tell me. I'm not really going to share my thoughts. You guys just tell me what you want." And, the problem with that is that you get yourself into these type of situations where all of a sudden the tide changes a little bit, and it maybe makes you look like it as a commissioner that you're not necessarily telling them what to do, which can be a good thing. But listen, for 3 years now, we've been discussing where the SEC is going to go to 8 to 9 games. And I understand the issues and the challenges and all that, but they've been hemming and hawing for 3 years on this for various reasons. At first, it was obviously strength of schedule. Then it was like, are we going to get enough money if we go to 9 games from ESPN? And then now it's about college football playoff format. Maybe it's contingent on that. I think what not necessarily surprising, but the kind of thing that happened here was last week we went into the spring meetings knowing and reporting that the athletic directors in the SEC and the athletic directors in the Big Ten were on the same page. They wanted 4 automatic qualifiers in the new CFP. Well, the problem is that you get the coaches in a room. The coaches almost always, in a lot of ways, when it comes to what's happening on the field, are going to differ from their athletic directors. And so that happened. It was very public. They came out of that room. And the coach was like, we don't want this. Let's put as many as we can in there. Let's go 5-11. Let's do all these to get rid of these automatic qualifiers. So it forces the ADs to have to listen to them as their constituents. And then, of course, they have Greg Sankey on the side, who's not necessarily voicing what he wants to everybody in the room among his athletic directors and presidents, going, okay, well, let's weigh this. Let's discuss all this. Because also remember, guys, everybody out there assumes that the Big Ten SEC can just throw down the throat of the rest of the conferences what we want. But maybe what the SEC really wants is not the 4AQ thing. They want to stuff the ballots, so to speak. They want to get as many teams in as possible. And the way to do that is by not having a lot of automatic qualifiers.
Mbako, Indiana, and before, Rashawn Agee, USC, Rylan Griffin, Kansas, Alabama, Federico, Texas Tech, Marcus Hill, NC State, Shakari Lane, North Alabama, Zach Clements, Kansas. You've got Jamie Vincent, Texas, Josh Holloway, Samford coming from with Bucky. These guys are coming from places that have played high-level basketball.
That's I think a big thing, and that's I think the transition to the SEC and how the SEC has been. There's been so much talk in the conference about how teams are investing in basketball now in the SEC, and they talk about the coaches who are in the SEC, and sometimes we forget the talent that is in the SEC, and you better have it. So Rylan Griffin, right? Alabama, Kansas, winning programs, right? And especially someone who was at Alabama, Nate Oates. Oh, that's right. Bucky was in Alabama and saw that, but he's also a Texas kid, right? So there's those things. Winning programs or have been winners. Can you make the step from North Alabama to A&M? We've seen plenty of that throughout college basketball. Yeah, Mbako, it probably had a very difficult decision because he was turning heads in the NBA. But if you're not one of the 60 who are going to be picked in those 2 rounds, then you do come back.
Sure.
And it's a little different from baseball to get into the minors and you get the side. With basketball, it's a little tougher. Like we're seeing Quentin Jackson and how it has paid off for him. Look, even Alex Caruso went through the G League and it has paid off, but that is a tougher road at times. You just don't want to rush to be a pro because it's so difficult. Come back for one more year and then you become one of those 60 in the next draft. But you make a really good point. The lineage for those guys, where they've played, the minutes that they've played, the competition that they've played. Like Pharrell Payne, when he played here, I asked him, what's the difference you're seeing in the SEC and the Big Ten when he was at Minnesota? He said the speed.
Yeah.
These guys are playing on programs that either dictate that pace or they've played against teams like that.
So give us examples of why, just something about him that like, you know what, I think it's going to work out.
I think it's the belief he instills in his players on a personal level. You know, I don't think it's Coach Early's an extremely bright hitting mind. And I think that, you know, I don't know what his role was in the offense this year. I don't know what his role in the offense will be next year, but I know that when he gets into one-on-one scenarios with his players, that they feel like mechanically and their approach is extremely advanced, and they're going to see, you know, leaps and bounds of success after, you know, working with him on a regular basis. But I'd say from a personal standpoint, and he kind of reminds me of Coach Rob Childress in a way, who I played under, is that, you know, there is a personal interaction and a personal relationship there that really makes you want to go to battle for him and him go to battle for you. And it's not because he's a great coach and he tries super hard. It's that, no, he's instilled something deeper in the players that they love about him. And usually that translates to, you know, more effort or more passion, or, you know, they'll kind of do anything for your coach. And I think when you have a coach that'll do anything for their players and a player that'll do anything for their coach on the field and off the field, that's usually going to translate in a good way. And I think that that's what these guys have in Coach Early, along with the brilliance of his hitting mind. So both of those I think are great. And I think that that's plenty good enough for a successful head coach.
But there isn't a lot of substance in these rankings because there isn't a lot of film, at least at this level in the SEC, on these quarterbacks. You look through the entire league, very few guys have started games in the league or more than a handful of games.
Yeah, and look, I replied to that. And I said I would put Sellers 1, Nussmeier 2. And then it's like, well, what are you rating them on? Because after that, but like I've said, I don't fully trust Nussmeier. I don't trust Nuss. But I think he's done enough and had enough good games against good opposition to put him up there until proven otherwise. So this, I guess, if this is just what you're projecting, because it has to be if you're putting Arch at 1. I'm not hating on Arch Manning. And by all accounts, too, he also seems like a really likable dude, a leader. He seems like a winner. But we don't know that. And I think it's fair. And last year, Texas fans dogpiled me for saying I didn't think in any world Quinn Ewers was going to be a Heisman finalist, a top 5 or number 1 overall draft pick, when people absolutely in Austin were saying that without question. A lot of people were saying that and believing that, or first round pick. I didn't think any of that. Maybe late first. Maybe I got duped into that because of the hype, but I never fully bought in on Quinn. I thought he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
I do. I always thought he's a good quarterback. But I have questions about Arch, and just simply that with Quinn, he was injured, he came back. It was a struggle for them inside the 20. Did Sark make a mistake by not playing Arch more in there? He was such a running threat. Man, what would that do to open up him as a passer? Just to kind of present run and let this guy throw if he's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And like, did Sark make a mistake in not doing that, or was there a reason he didn't do that? Did he not trust Manning as a freshman, putting it up inside the 20 in key moments of must-win games for them? Because we just didn't see it ever in games that mattered.
That's going to do it for this edition of the TexAgs Rewind. Make sure to comment, comment that everyone should be nicer to me and they shouldn't be making fun of me every episode, because that seems to be a theme when Billy comes on. And then Also, make sure to share and tell them to stop making fun of Cade as well. And I will continue to make fun of Callie Garner. And also make sure to share and like and subscribe, as you always do, our loyal listeners and the 5 viewers that have watched this far. Thank you for watching.